The Tampa Bay Lightning have had a sustainable amount of success over the last handful of years that is almost unheard of in sports. Since 2017, they have been a force to be reckoned with in the National Hockey League. And surely they are going to regress sometime soon, right? Well, they have continued being at the top of the NHL in 2022-23, and obviously you're going to be having success when your core includes Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, and Andrei Vasilevsky, who are all among the top players at their respective position. But the true success for Tampa Bay has come from the way that the Bolts have been able to complement those players. And it's truly an art. It's the art of appreciating undervalued talent. The Lightning have continuously grown their riches by buying low on players that they see potential in, even so much to the point that maybe they're buying high on them, overpaying in some trades at the time, but they end up working out just fine for Tampa Bay. This trade deadline has been very similar. You find an underrated player with a low-priced contract and remaining term from a selling team, and a player that has shown flashes but hasn't been brilliant yet. You acquire him, put him with your stars, and give him the best chance to succeed. This is Julien BriseBois's bread and butter. In 2018, the Bolts acquired Jan Rutta and a 7th round pick from the Blackhawks in exchange for Slater Koekkoek and a 5th round pick. This seemed like a relatively unimportant deal at the time, but Rutta went on to play big minutes and be a crucial factor in Tampa Bay and their success on the blue line. Koekkoek never played up to Rutta's pace, as the Bolts would keep Jan Rutta through 2021 on a team-friendly deal. When they were boosting their lineup for their first of 3 consecutive deep playoff runs, the Bolts acquired Blake Coleman from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for Nolan Foote and a 1st round pick. This trade looked like a slight overpay at the time for the 28-year-old Coleman, but despite having to pay the premium price, this was one of the best trades that BriseBois has made to date. Coleman ended up being a core player for them during the bubble and the 2021 run before leaving in free agency to join the Calgary Flames. They added another player to put their bottom 6 over the edge at that same trade deadline, as the Lightning acquired Barclay Goodrow from the Sharks in exchange for a 1st round pick and Anthony Greco. This trade didn't make much sense at the time. Goodrow was a mediocre player for San Jose, and Tampa paid a very large price for the 26-year-old who at the time of the trade just had 24 points in 62 games on the season. Goodrow was not a spectacular player for Tampa Bay, but he played big minutes and was a key player in a supporting role through their cup runs. He made big plays and was a reliable player throughout the playoffs whenever called upon. He and Coleman would both end up playing massive roles on the penalty kill units, and the truth is, without the additions that were made, getting these players that were on extremely cheap contracts that were a bargain considering the impact that they had on Tampa Bay, I don't know if the Lightning would have actually made their runs, and these were players that were complemented so well in the John Cooper system. Tampa Bay has always had cheaper, underrated players on their roster. From Yanni Gourde to Ross Colton, those 2 players were both homegrown though through the system and worked their way up into being regulars in the NHL. When it came to paying Yanni Gourde, they would give him the extension that he deserved, but then expose him to the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft and be able to get rid of the cap hit. This was a massive loss, as in the same offseason, the Lightning ended up letting Coleman and Goodrow walk when they were up for extension. Knowing how far their value had grown while playing for the Lightning, and Tampa Bay went right back into the cycle despite losing one of their most consistent lines throughout their last 3 seasons. At the 2022 trade deadline, Tampa Bay once again put all their chips on the table when they acquired the young, underrated Brandon Hagel from the Blackhawks. Once again, it would look like an overpay at the time. 2 first-round picks and 2 AHL forwards for Hagel and a pair of 4th-round picks. Brandon Hagel got off to a very slow start in Tampa Bay, but has since been able to put together a nearly flawless first regular season with the Lightning, reaching the 50-point mark for the first time in his young career. Out of all the deals that I have mentioned so far in this video, I don't think one has been criticized more than the Hagel trade. The Blackhawks were a rebuilding team, and Hagel was a young guy that they thought would be able to be with them for a long time. And not a lot of people thought he was worth the price that the Lightning paid for him. They took a gamble on a guy who was drafted but not even signed by the Buffalo Sabres in 2016. He was signed by Chicago, however, and quickly worked his way through the system into being a regular in the lineup, and he became a fan favorite in the Windy City. The Bolts paid a lot to get him there, but he was a player who had put up 3 WHL seasons above a point per game, including his 20-year-old season where he notched 102 points in just 66 games. Brisebois saw the potential, and Hagel has lived up to it. The best part of it all, he was acquired with 2 years remaining on a deal where he makes just $1.5 million annually. Hagel is a winger on the line with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, and he's kept up with them as if he is a superstar in the NHL. Nick Paul was acquired as a rental, making just $1.35 million per year. Tampa Bay would extend him quickly for 7 years with an annual average value of $3.15 million. It would cost Tampa Bay Matthew Joseph and a 4th rounder to get Nick Paul from the Ottawa Senators onto their team. Paul is now on a team-friendly contract and is once again putting together a decent year in Tampa. He had a huge playoff run last year and has continued the momentum into 2022-23, putting together a decent year on the 3rd line. This trade deadline was no different. It once again saw Tampa Bay face a lot of criticism for their trades. Tanner Jeannot is a player that fits John Cooper's team so well. A checking forward who is on a cheap deal who they should manage to extend very easily. He was acquired from Nashville, while Tampa Bay sent Cal Foote and a handful of mid-round picks, as well as a 2nd rounder and a 2025 first. Obviously, this looks like a fleece for the Predators, but given the context of what Tampa Bay has pulled off over the last handful of years, I say let's let it play out. Brisebois would then send Vlad Nemestikov to the Sharks in exchange for Michael Eyssimont, who is an analytical freak. He kind of has this same feeling around him as Brandon Hagel in some ways. A 26-year-old who has solid underlining numbers, who could truly take off with the right line mates in the right situation, as well as a little bit of puck luck to get those finishing numbers up. Sports have always been notorious for having a way of imitating success. The NHL has always had teams that have followed the strategy that I described in this video, boosting their lineup through teams with players that have potential and then maybe letting them go once they count more towards their cap hit. But nobody has taken it to the extreme that Tampa Bay has. The way that they have been able to maintain success over the last 5 years, and they are continuing to do so, I believe can be directly credited towards this strategy. And Julien Brisebois is one of the best GMs in the league for a reason. Although his trades might not look good when they happen, in hindsight, a couple years from now, who knows what kind of players Tanner Jeannot and Michael Eyssimont could be, and who knows how long the Lightning are going to be able to stay competitive, as some of these guys that Brisebois has acquired for cheap, the guys like Brandon Hagel, have ended up taking a bigger role away from the Braden Points and the Nikita Kucherovs of the world. I'm not saying that any of these guys will ever be as good as Stamkos or Point or Kucherov or Hedman, who are some of the best players that the league has seen over the last 10-20 years. I'm saying that the Lightning have been able to maximize these guys, their superstars, by putting them with these younger guys, with these guys with tons of potential, and everybody wins from this situation, and Julien BriseBois did it once again at this trade deadline. I'm super excited to see how these deals will play out, and I hope that you guys all enjoyed this video. If you did, consider leaving a like and checking out my second channel if you're an NFL fan. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys all next time. Goodbye.